March is Social Work Awareness Month, and if you have ever wondered what social workers do or considered becoming a social worker and what's possible, this series will more than fill your cup. The theme this year is Break Barriers, and we've taken on the opportunity to bring awareness to the profession by exploring what it means to do this thing, what it means to be a social worker, and some of the challenges of the field too. And we're doing that through some thought-provoking conversations with professionals that are doing just some amazing things in the community. My name is Amanda Fludd. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, speaker, coach, entrepreneur, and creator of this audacious project to interview a social worker a day for 30 days. And it's just been phenomenal seeing in like real life what folks are doing and how creative they've been with the profession. And today I'm joined by fellow social worker of Caribbean descent, Trinay Thomas, LCSW. Trinay, a pleasure to have you.
So excited to be here, Amanda. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Wow. I mean, 30 and 30 days. Wow.
I don't know if I thought it through.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would like to call it a little bit of an adventure if I can.
That's good.
Yeah.
So many ways. And it reflects our field where it's like we just may see one version and know a bit of it, but the behind the scenes is like, whoa.
I think this is so creative and cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way to get to know people. My mind goes to like the Food Network where they go to all these cute little places and like sample all the food.
Yes.
Yeah. So I get to sample all the experiences of my colleagues out there all over the world, all over everywhere, doing some amazing things. So coming back to you in terms of the theme for the month, Break Barriers, what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? I think social workers are always breaking barriers on a regular basis, but I think historically we've always been kind of quiet about it. I think we're so used to working, focusing on what we do, how we do it, serving clients, serving, systems and organizations or families. So we're always breaking barriers. But I think it's now time for us to break that barrier of, just the whole mainstream population not really knowing all the goodness that we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always meet social workers and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. You're doing this, but then they're doing this in a very it's in a very fascinating yet humble existence. So either you know about them or you don't know about them. So that's what makes this really cool. So yeah, I just think that that's part of our professional identity.
Yeah. Yeah, which I guess can be helpful as well as harmful sometimes because, this is what we do. We teach people to advocate for themselves and to speak up, but, are we fully advocating for what we do? And, maybe it's that humility that, where it's good to kind of move and be quiet and it really isn't about us. But at the same time, it's hard for people to see the value of what we do when we don't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I will say there are more and more social workers that are venturing into the social media space.
Oh yeah, we're more public. Yeah.
That is really beginning to demonstrate how we are breaking barriers, how we are, doing things differently, and how that's just naturally part of who we are as a profession. So that's really cool. But for me, I think, when I think about breaking barriers, I think about how I am demonstrating to the new generation of social workers about what I do and about letting them know there's a lot of creative space in what we do. So if you really learn about who you are and how you want to serve, you can be just breaking barriers along the way. We don't get boxed into our profession unless you want to be boxed in. And so I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I just think that I just think that we're breaking barriers all the time. One of the things that I will say is with opening up my private practice, I hadn't developed a niche yet. And then clients started gravitating towards me. And I think, for me, breaking the barrier of, okay, having a private practice that's just kind of broadly serving, all different, presenting issues, and then realizing certain individuals are gravitating towards me, and just breaking that concept that, what, you can just really create here. So when more clients that come to me from the Caribbean diaspora, Asian diaspora, African diaspora, I said, okay, I want to highlight that I work with first and second generation and beyond immigrants.
It made
From
sense. So your niche found you.
My niche found me, but I think it is about breaking barriers in a way too, because sometimes different cultures, different groups, different immigrant populations have different concepts that, and I think it's a great opportunity to break barriers for them about the stigma of mental health and psychotherapy.
Right.
So I'm always kind of in that space a little bit about breaking barriers when it comes to my work with them. How it kind of breaking barriers and how I created my niche in a way.
Yeah. And if you could even talk a little bit more about that, like how have you been influenced by your own cultural background in this work?
I think one of the things I will say is that I enjoy the creativity from the Trinbagonian culture. I thought it was really cool that you're also from Trinidad and Tobago. That's so awesome. I didn't know that. That's just awesome.
Discovering so much on this adventure. So a pleasure.
Yes. And so there's a lot of creativity involved in that. One of the things that I do with some of my clients, and I've started recently doing this as of last year, some of my clients that are open to it, I created a soca playlist for my clients. One of them is just focusing on self-development. Wow. And it's fun, and music shifts energy.
It does.
Music shifts energy. And I've had one or two clients that are not of Caribbean descent that were open to it because they were like, well, I enjoy soca. I said, okay, great. And so the playlist that I send them is fun, and it's vibrant, and it is an energy, it gives you an injection of energy, a joy injection.
Yes.
So I've enjoyed that. So I've created like 2 other playlists. And I'm having fun with it.
Amazing, because it brings us to this place of how do we be our authentic self in this work, and moving away from this like very like dry, like the generic cereal box version of what social work is, and the importance of, which is one of our core tenets, like meeting clients where they are. Right. You've taken that and applied some really creative, home-based cultural things to that idea.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I also try to create a safe space for clients, not just to talk about things that are troubling them, but also I make sure to lay a foundation that it's okay to talk about things that are fun and funny. Yeah. And my clients, they talk about the difficulties, the challenges, the trauma, but we also talk about just other things that happen in life. And sometimes we are laughing. I just got to tell you. And not so much that I'm super funny, but I can honestly say, and sometimes we'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was funny, but I know this is a serious thing we're talking about. And I was like, you know what? Especially if it's a situation where the context, it's appropriate. I really go there and let them know therapy is a reflection of life. Yeah. So if we're only bringing in trauma, if we're only bringing in darkness, how do we create an environment where there's a balance? When you're ready to laugh, it should be fertile ground for you to bring how you are. So if you were laughing and last time there was a lot of sadness, there needs to be enough space for all of that.
And for the human, right? Like you are a human before the problem, right? You're still going to be a human after that. And we have to be able to kind of balance. And, I love the brilliance of our work. And I always say that, social work is an art. Therapy is an art where you learn how to weave in that person, you learn how to do it creatively, and it's certainly more than the problem. So yeah, I love to hear how you bring laughter into the work. I'm good for being like, yeah, I'm laughing at you on that one. Right? So, but we have like a good relationship where we can feel that, and it's meaningful. And I love the joy in the space too. For me, it's like where there's laughter, there's hope, and we're trying to cultivate hope.
Yes,
we do as social workers.
Yeah.
But that's a skill. So what are the skills that are necessary for our success as social workers? What do we need to cultivate ourselves?
Well, I think accepting that it's a journey where you're always a student.
Oh, speak a word, honey.
And so we're always going to be learning and
Yes.
reading and studying. And I think it's really about tapping in and understanding how the marketplace works.
Yes.
And if you just tap into, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing, and this is how I'm going to be doing that, and not understand how the market flows, I think that's like a big mistake. And I think really tapping into that space gets you in touch with what skills are on demand now.
Yeah, that's something to think about. And I think even as a profession, because we've got to almost create space for that in learning too, right? Especially in academia, where there is this market side or this business side to the work, right? And regardless on what level that you're on, because we do have to understand what is happening in our community and, where the needs are and where the shifts are. And that might be a little outside the box of how we teach too, like the need there, I think, too, professionally as well as like collectively and individually.
Yes, absolutely. So I do think it is about taking that time to study the market and the skills on demand that are being promoted by the market.
Yes.
And then starting to say, okay, these are the skills I'm going to invest in. And so when I think about what's happening now in the US society, I think about clinicians, I think about social workers, and I think about particularly social workers of color that are working with clients that may be experiencing trauma or looking to process trauma. And when we think about racial trauma, or what I would like to refer to as racial justice, and underneath that canopy is racial trauma, and figuring out how they can process that. And I think it's really important for social workers of color to make sure and ensure that they are, navigating in that space, so that they are skilled or, in that area, because more and more people are using their voices and asking for therapy more than ever before. And we want to make sure we are equipped. But I think overall, all therapists should be knowledgeable and educated about that in general, because of where society is. So I think developing skills in that area is on demand.
Yeah. And I think for clinicians and just like as therapists, not therapists, social workers as a whole, because we can position ourselves, like not just in the space of therapy, we can position ourselves to be, the thought leaders and the folks that people come to for answers, because of our unique skill sets and love of people and what we do there. And because we're well aware of what's happening in the market, and we can bring those tools to where we are, because we're seeing that level of stress and distress at school, at work. And we've got to start thinking about how do we creatively push into those spaces and be the ones that people look to and come to for support. Because I do see too that there's a lot of people showing up that don't have the skills. They don't know what they're doing, but they out here just talking a good game. But
yes, and we have to be very careful, because a lot of people feel confident about talking a game.
Right.
And so that's a big concern. That is a really big concern.
Yeah. So I think to hold us at like this place of value, we've got to continue our learning, like you're saying, right? So we can be in position. And then I think, so you can tell me how you feel about this. Like we've also got to continue like our self-awareness of where we are. And if we're just talking a good game too, or if we're really developing all the areas that we need to really kind of show up and help and serve in.
Absolutely. Professional development, personal development, self-care. These are all things that I think social workers need to have in, that need to be centered regarding their work.
Yeah.
I also think two areas that I think are really important is language. Our globe is becoming smaller and smaller. And social workers need to become aware, mindful, and make decisions on whether they would like to become become educated or take courses or training in American Sign Language or Spanish or Mandarin, Chinese, or Arabic. I mean, these are choices that especially social workers have to make depending on what geographical region you live in the United States, because immigrants, as opposed to maybe 100 years ago, immigrants are maintaining their native languages more than they
still
did.
migrating and moving. Yes, because of whatever economic situations or just the need, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so there is a need for social workers in terms of skills to become skills in those areas and invest in those areas. And then the other thing too, that's a huge thing, is getting licensed in multiple states. Since this pandemic, our marketplace has changed. Social workers, our marketplace has changed. There are more opportunities, and then people are moving. People are relocating. There are jobs that are remote. And so as a result of that, you may have, let's say you are in a community, let's say you're graduating from you just finished your MSW and you're looking for job options. You're going to have more opportunities if you're looking in multiple states. And if you sat the exam, which is one exam at that level, you can apply for licensure in multiple states. And so social workers have to think about that in the marketplace and what that means and what that represents.
Which is phenomenal. And I love that that's something that you do as well. And we'll make sure to leave your information where folks can connect on that too, because, we do have to think about how do we create opportunities for ourselves and how do we meet people where they are, especially like you're saying, if, we have a certain cultural background, we've got this like toolbox of, language and other skill sets that may be needed in other areas. How do we show up there? Right? Because there's just not that many of us. We are the needle in the haystack, but
I think there are two moving needles in this conversation. Two moving needles. But yes, definitely. Yeah.
So it's a good way to create access, and we're all about that in this profession too. That's a good point. So finish the sentence for me. I wish people understood social workers ...
The social workers are exciting. I have to say we're exciting. I think that once you get to know us, you'll find out how exciting we are. The work we do is exciting. The work we do is hard. The work we do is difficult, and it's enriching, and it's uplifting, it's empowering, because we're transforming lives. We're transforming families, groups, organizations, and systems. And that's the one thing I wish people knew more about us, is that we engage in exciting work. We really do.
Me too. Yeah. Oh, amazing. You've given us so many reasons to just celebrate social workers. And I think that you're also an example of that, right? And, like you've shared in terms of how we could be diverse in this work, and there's lots of ways that we can create our own opportunities as we work to ensure that folks are just healing in a way that makes sense for them, or growing in a way that makes sense for them. So, we thank you, Ms. Trinay Thomas, for your contributions to the profession and the many ways that you've decided to be creative in this work.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And just for anyone who's listening, you know, think about how you can acknowledge a social worker, right? Find the ones in your life and get to
Yes.
sit down, have some tea with them.
Yes.
Figure out what they do. Before this conversation, I was chit-chatting with Trinay. I'm like, oh my God, we need to connect again after this, right?
Yes. Yes.
It may not even be strangers to the profession. It may be as other professionals, which would probably even be phenomenal. How do we sit down with each other and, you know, hear what the other is doing and think about how we can support each other? Because it really is as big as the profession. It is one of the fastest growing professions in the US. There's still like a small box of us, especially for, you know, people of color too.
Yes, indeed.
So, you know, maybe the one act that you do today is figure out who can I talk to, whether another social worker or, you know, figuring out, you know, professionally social worker, or figure out who I haven't spoken to and who the social workers on my team, or where's the closest one, right?
Yes.
Right? Or your one act is just sharing this and keeping the celebration going. Whatever it is, we hope that you will be a part of our legacy of change. And to all of us in the profession, we see you and we thank you and have a